Barry, where are we right now?
We're in the courtyard in front of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Christian quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem. This is the traditional location of where Jesus died and was buried, and of course where he rose from the dead. When Constantine became Emperor of Rome in the 4th century, he established Christianity as the religion of the Roman world. And his mother made a trip to Israel for the sole purpose of trying to identify locations associated with the life of Jesus. She would ask the locals, and this is where everybody said those events took place. And it was also noteworthy that the Romans had basically demolished that area to a degree because they knew of the importance that spot held to Christians.
Cultural cleansing is not a new concept, and so when the Romans came through, they tried to remove those locations and reminders of things that they didn't want the people to associate with Jesus. So this structure behind us is on top of those locations.
It is.
Is there anything special that we need to do when we go in?
Well, we need to observe reverence when we go in, so we'll remove our hats.
Okay. I think one of the things that will catch anybody who visits the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for the first time is when you walk in through that double door, the very first thing that you see on the floor is the spot where they say they prepared Jesus' body for burial. And that specific rock is not the rock. That rock has actually been replaced several times because it's been worn down from people touching it and kissing it and placing things on it. If you can stand in that entranceway and try to use your imagination and remove the ceilings and remove the walls and just look at heights, to your right, where the cross would have stood, is a hill.
We've climbed up these steps here to an elevation a little higher than the rest of the building here. And we're standing in front of the traditional location of Calvary, which is where they believe Jesus Christ was crucified. And underneath the glass behind us, what you see is some exposed bedrock, and what they believe is that this is where the cross actually went into the ground.
So this is the traditional location where Jesus was crucified with robbers on either side of him. It would have been very, very visible to have those 3 crosses there. The floor that you reach by those stairs is not very large. You can't fit a large number of people up there. So if you imagine those floors are gone, it shrinks the area where those crosses were. It really makes it plain that Jesus' crucifixion was a public crucifixion. They were making an example of these men. They were taunting him and taking advantage of the fact that he was finally stuck and he was exactly where they wanted him to be. And so there was a huge lack of respect shown to him by those who were there. Again, we can't say for certain that is the exact spot.
My personal opinion is this is the general location.
Right.
Now, whether or not these specific spots are exactly correct, I don't know.
And the topography over time has changed. I mean, originally this was a hillside, and now you've got this large structure on top of it. To imagine Jesus and Simon carrying that cross, coming outside of that city wall, coming down to Golgotha, and having his cross placed here, and then at the finale of the crucifixion, having his body removed and placed in the tomb down beneath us.
Right.
And what most people don't realize is how close this spot is to the Rock of Anointing just below us, and then the edicule over the tomb where Jesus was buried. And we're talking less than a football field to contain all 3 of these locations. They're really close.
The scriptures even tell us that in the area where he was crucified, there was a garden.
Right.
And so this is a very close location here. Just around the corner over there in the same building is the edicule, which is the traditional location of where he was buried.
We were able to talk to somebody at the front door.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure how much of it we were going to get, but they're trying to work it out so that we can go down inside by ourselves for just a couple of minutes, which is a huge honor.
Yeah, it is. And what they refer to as the edicule here is this huge building that's inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and it sits on top of the traditional side of the tomb.
So it's a superstructure over to protect whatever is left.
They've actually done some renovations here. For the first time in years, there's not scaffolding and brackets. They took all that down about 3 or 4 months ago, and so it's actually really beautiful now.
Until then, you didn't have a clear view of the edicule itself.
Right.
Thinking about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. The resurrection of Jesus is the cornerstone of Christianity. And so to be in the place that traditionally marks that event is enormous.
Yeah, very special, very special.
Doing my research about the edicule, every time you see pictures of it or videos of it, it is jam-packed, crowded. I mean, there are people that will wait for hours trying to get in there for just a couple of seconds.
I have visited the Church of the Holy Sepulchre probably 8 or 10 times, and I have never been able to go inside the edicule. And the reason is exactly that. There's usually a line of hours to get in there.
We were really blessed to go just before one group started their time at the entrance of the edicule, and we were told to wait, that as soon as they were done, there would be this brief window of time. So we just stood there and we waited and we watched them perform their service, and after a few minutes we were finally allowed in, but we took as much time as we could to try to soak in as much as we could of the space. When you first walk in, you go through a door into a square room, and in the center of that room is a pedestal with a glass case. And what I understand is that the rock inside that glass case is supposed to be a remnant of the rolling stone that actually closed the tomb. And directly opposite the entrance is another smaller door that leads into a much more confined space.
Okay, Jeremy, we're inside the edicule, and this right here, this flat slab, is where they believe they laid the body of Jesus Christ after he died.
Now this slab is on top of what remains of that. We don't see any original rock left.
No, the original cave and everything is long gone, centuries ago. It was destroyed. But they built this edicule over this area to help protect it. This spot was established by Queen Helena in the 4th century when she came here, and the people of the area said this was the location where it took place.
The tomb that his body would have been laid in would not have been large.
No, it wouldn't have been large.
It was very much similar to the Church of the Nativity, where everything is protected and you have this structure built over the top of it. But you still get the idea of, I'm going underground, and there's a shelf here where a body would have gone. And it's just around the corner from a hill where a cross would have been placed. And that was just really special. It's hard for people who aren't familiar with 1st century burial practices to picture what a 1st century tomb would have looked like. And frankly, going into the edicule doesn't help a whole lot with that, but Barry knew that there was a place just on the backside of the edicule where we could go and see an example of 1st century tombs.
And the location of these tombs is important and gives more credibility to the location of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Okay, Jeremy, we've crawled into a hole here, back behind the edicule of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But I wanted to show you these niches in the rock here. These are 1st century Jewish tombs. What's significant about this is that we are literally 20 feet from where the edicule is. And so that shows that Jewish people buried people in this area.
You can see how a body would be placed inside each one. You've got the chisel marks where they carved it out. And as opposed to the edicule, you can actually see the natural rock. You can see what it would have looked like.
Right.
Now, from what I understand, after about a year of a body laying in here, they would bring it out, and then they'd put the bones in those small bone boxes, the ossuaries.
And it would be reburied again.
Seeing this helps us to imagine what it would have been like when they placed Jesus' body in the tomb. They would have placed his body in, they would have rolled a stone in front of it and closed it off.
Right.
There are a lot of times where the location is really important. Even in the Old Testament, God specified a place for his people to worship, and it was in Jerusalem. When you go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you see people from all over the world coming to this place, and it's important. But I think it's important to remember what Jesus said to the woman at the well. There was going to come a time very shortly where it wasn't in Jerusalem or in Samaria where you would worship God, that God was looking for people to worship him in spirit and in truth. It's not the location. And after his death, burial, and resurrection, and especially after Pentecost, Jesus provided a way for worshipers of God through him to worship anywhere. And I think it's important to remember that.
I enjoy taking people to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and I enjoy trying to help them understand what the building is and what probably happened there. After we walk through the building, I always try to bring people outside and gather them together and try to remind them that this isn't just a tourist stop. There's some very important events that happened in this location. They're the most important things to ever happen in the history of mankind.
From the creation of the world going forward, this is what all of history was working towards. And from our perspective looking back, it's all been influenced and shaped by that. To say that the crucifixion and burial and resurrection of Jesus was the pivotal moment of history is not an exaggeration.